then.
Okay, let us know when we're live.
We are live.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Brent Schonemark, Chair of the Mid-Continent Public Library Building Committee. It's a great fall day, and we've got a pretty full agenda. And so we're going to go through it. I'm going to ask some forbearance. I think I'm going to jump around agenda items, particularly those that require action or decision by the committee. So if I don't follow if I go from 2 to 6, don't be unsettled. It's an effort to try and get the business done that we can with the most people that are available. So do you mind calling the roll?
Absolutely. Brent.
Here.
Joycelyn.
Here.
Michael.
Here.
Michelle. Ron.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. So the agenda is in front of us. I just sort of told you we may just jump around from different items. There's a lot of small items that require some action, and a big portion of the meeting is just updates on major things that we have sort of going. So let's take care of the minutes. The minutes are.
You need to approve the agenda.
Oh, excuse me. Somebody want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah, I move to approve the agenda.
Okay, I heard a second.
Okay, thank you.
This is Joycelyn. I'll second.
All right, I heard everybody speak to the matter, and all those in favor of the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so
Aye.
we will cover everything that's on the agenda. We may not cover them in the order that they are down in front of us. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes of our July 28th meeting?
So
Okay, there's a motion.
I'll second it.
There's a second. All those in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? I think the first item I want to take up, thanks to staff for preparing this. It's a job that takes some time and effort, and so we should not. I want to go to the item number 7, which is the North Oak easement, and then turn it over to staff to tell us what they want us to know.
You want to touch on that one?
Basically, this is an easement for Evergy to be able to do work as required. The reason why they're asking for this particular easement is because we've kind of changed around the way the building's going to be. I've got this in front of the legal just to make sure that we're not doing anything. I've actually asked them for a status on that. And but it's pretty straightforward. Is that the only one? If you go one more, I'm sorry, there we go. You can see that gray line at the very top is what they're talking about. It really goes through our kind of the parking lot if they had to do any work. As with most easements, if they rip it up, they have to replace it. I don't see this being a huge issue. It's pretty standard. We have easements on every last one of our properties. So this is it's not a one-off. It's just documenting it and putting it in writing.
Any discussion? Anybody want to make a motion?
So
Okay, got a motion? Is there a second?
This is Joycelyn. I'll second that.
Any discussion about the easement?
yeah, just a question. So there's not anything that's going to happen with this easement. I mean, right now.
No.
So this would just be in case they would ever have to do what?
Just in case some sort of emergency came up, we had a power issue. We have a neighborhood right behind us, but we also have
Right.
power ourselves. So it's really just, we have this on every last one of our properties.
Yeah, I know.
But that's basically what it is. It's just to make sure that, and again, we're going through legal. Our process is we take it to the building committee and then we take it up to the board.
I would just ask if we approve this, that if there's legal discover something, that they let us know before it goes to the full board. So,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
okay.
Jake, this is an underground service, not poles.
No, it's underground. Correct.
All right. Any other question? Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? All those who want to abstain? All right, thank you. I'm now going to go to item number 8, which is the Green Hills Cafe vendor contract.
This is a contract in order to put novellas, get the coffee shop up and running at the Green Hills location. The space is ready. They're just waiting for board approval on the contract so that everybody can sign it. The contract is actually very similar to the one that's at Post at Culver Road. It just is updated with the location and the name of the actual vendor. They will be paying us some rent. And so there's a little bit of revenue stream in there. It's Common House Coffee and Black Hole Bakery are the two that form Novella LLC, and they are looking forward to being in there. Common House Coffee used to be on the square up here in Independence, and I think they moved to the Crossroads, so this will be a Northland location for them. And I've heard nothing but positive things about Black Hole Bakery. People can't wait for them to get in there. So like Post, they'll be able to cater with in the building and first right of refusal if we're doing events and things like that right there.
I might add that this has been through legal review.
Yes, it has been.
They saw no issues with it.
Anybody want to make a motion?
So
This is Joyce, and I'll move, second.
Okay. Any discussion?
yeah, I did have some questions on this. First of all, I think it's going to be great to have the services available, but like a number 1, they said no smaller than 1,500 square feet. Is there a maximum?
Isn't that about the space?
That's the size.
That's the size of the space.
So that, okay, so that was the no smaller is not necessary really.
Not really. I think we did that as a provision for the first one with Post to give them an idea of what their space was going to look like. You're right. It's not completely necessary, but we put it in there just to have that proviso.
Okay, so it's going to be 1,500 square
So
feet.
they can't expand, I think, more than anything.
Well, so that actually with not, when it says not less than, they can expand.
Mhm.
If we set a floor without a ceiling, that,
I hear what you're saying. I think they're right at about 1,400 square feet.
okay, then we can look at that. Okay. And then also, we clearly know that it's 1,500 square feet. We identify the actual, what the 1,500 square feet are. Have like a schematic or something.
Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Because when I was there, it looked as though there was the food and refreshment area that's right next to the hallway. I want to make sure the 1,500 feet don't encroach into the hallway or something like that. I think if we just have a schematic, they'll say this is 1,500 square feet.
So you're wanting us to narrow, to put the exact square footage in there? I mean, I could definitely do that. That's
No, we can say 1,500 square feet, but I mean, where? I mean, unless we identify where the 1,500 square feet are to be situated, we leave it up to them.
Well, I see your point, but they can't do it in the middle of the library because they don't have that.
They can't, but it doesn't say they can't.
I think Ron's just asking to show a drawing where the coffee bar is.
Put
and
a
just-
schematic.
I totally agree with you.
Then
Okay.
just include that as a amendment to
Get a 30 by 50 square foot and say, guys, stay there.
I know, I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
We know where they're going. Let's show where they're going.
Yeah, and then just some general questions, 2 and 4 talked about the services that the library are giving and then the $1,000 rent. And I'm just curious, is that pretty much standard within a site provided lease?
So what I did was I looked at the Post, what they were doing, and then I looked at these folks as part of their proposal. Because they are up in the Northland, because it is a little bit, you don't have the same, in my mind, the same geographic density as you do in Post. It was a little bit less. I don't know that there's an actual standard, but I know what we charge Post. And I know what we were going with that. So when I looked at that,
That's the standard then, yeah. And not a concern at all. I'm just curious on the on 5. We talked about the hours of operation. I know at Woodneath is like 9 to 3, which is entirely appropriate for starting the day and then continuing. But for the percentages, like the 80% here and the 60 hours a week, is that going to be coordinated with Xander or the branch manager or something like that?
Yes, they'll be coordinating with all the folks for the different hours.
Good.
They did ask for earlier hours than Sunday. And that made sense to me because obviously we want them to be fiscally prudent when they're going forward. Most folks aren't going to want coffee at 3 PM on a Sunday. Not all, but most, you know. But the bottom line is they were thinking from a profitable viewpoint, it'd be better to have it open right after, you know, some of the churches let out.
Absolutely.
Versus at 1 o'clock when we open up. So that's why I let them get that for that.
And then this is kind of new stuff, but after a meeting yesterday afternoon, so the reference to the no alcoholic beverages, maybe that's something we can kind of coordinate with the fact that
They would have to coordinate that with us.
Yes, they would.
But here it says no, we just want to coordinate that the no alcoholic beverages is not going to be restraining them.
No, it shouldn't for them. No.
It shouldn't. They didn't even have any issues with that. There was no.
No. It just right now it says that if the contract says that there will be no alcoholic beverages, I mean, that we want to maybe look at that to delete it to say that instead of no beverages, you will comply with the new policy that allows beverages.
Well, yeah, but those what we talked about last night is for special events.
Sure, and if they cater special events, they want to have the exception.
Well, then they
apply.
could do that, but that won't be selling it out of their space. It'll be actually be in.
That'd be catered.
It'd be catered. That'd be part of the catering. We're not going to sell over their counter to the public just willy-nilly.
Okay.
That's
okay.
what that refers
Gotcha.
to.
Okay, so
So
Novella's
it's-
not going to
yeah.
be the bartender.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Great. Okay. And then just a question on, it says that Novella's customers need to follow, you know, the food, drink, and policy. I mean, so are we imposing upon Novella a duty to inform the customers of our policies, or couldn't we just post it or something like that? Instead of
So what we did, this is coming driving forward with post. We act as a team. They're Novella and the library's management and Xander, they're all a team. And they want to politely remind people, hey, you know, if you're going to go out in the library, please keep the lid on. You know, it's so it's not an actual enforcement, but it is we do want to be able to go to them and say, hey, you know, you should be, as part of your sales and everything, reminding people about
like postings or.
And we do have a post. We'll also have a
Wonderful. Okay, great. That's my questions. Thank you.
Thanks for responding. So if we can just add a schematic that shows where the location is and do that. And so with that consideration, any other?
I think it's just a common sense factor, but like if there's a celebration or something and you almost want to have like a
I think you're
like
exactly right.
sidewalk cafe into the.
Then they can't ever come back and say, well, we didn't understand. I get it.
Right, yeah.
It's like the measure twice and cut once sort of thing.
Something I don't follow.
Especially with power tools, it's dangerous.
We're a lively bunch this morning. So anyway,
There's no thought in mid-effort.
all right. Any further discussion? We have a motion. I think there's a second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? And like the other items, these will be brought forward to the full board. So there'll be another discussion, another vote, and another vote on that. I want to go to item number 9, which is the energy efficient commercial building deduction allocation. This could be a long and complicated discussion, but let me tell you, this is something that we've done before. And so I'll turn it over to staff.
And Jake may need to explain this better than I, but this is an allocation that as a government entity, we are not eligible for, but we can transfer our deduction credits, whatever term you want to use around this, to one of our contractors. We have done this in the past, and we have passed this on to SAP Design, because if somebody's going to get credit for it, somebody might as well get credit for it. And if we can't, let's go ahead and pass it on. It's just for, you know, HVAC and energy efficiencies that we are putting in our buildings. And since they are responsible for that, they're the most likely recipient of our allocations.
Didn't we do SAP last year too?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's typically who we give it to.
Okay,
Is there a motion?
So
Is there a second?
second.
Any discussion?
I was wondering, do we know what the value of this is as a deduction? I mean, what the deduction amount is for SAT?
I would have to look that up, Ron. I could go back
Be nice
and
to
ask,
know.
but they didn't actually give me a value.
Yeah, because it's like, it's,
I think it varies.
yeah, I think it's up to like, yeah, it's under $2 a square foot, but if the coverage is $2 a square foot for tens of thousands of square feet, it could be some, real change.
I had the same question, so maybe when we get to the full board, having that
Yeah.
information, understanding what the value is. This one is specifically associated with the Green Hills Library, so it specifies the property.
Yes, the last one we did was for Colburn Road.
Yeah.
So,
And-
It's not on every building, it's just
So how many square feet is Green Hills?
30,000.
300?
36,000.
Okay, if it's $2 a square foot, that'd be
72.
6. But then it applies to the tax rate they're in, so of course it's going to be reduced by substantially, but okay.
It'd be good to have that information, how many times we've done this, because I anticipate it coming up, particularly because we have new board members, and as we want to transfer our knowledge to other board members, it would be additional good background information to have. Any discussions, further discussion? Go ahead.
It looks like on page 2, it gives us that value. Is that correct on the document, Jay? It's
Yes.
$1,000, so the value is $10,000.
Okay. But I will.
Re-verify that, okay.
Yeah.
It's on, it's in board right there, from this. Says cost of
Yeah,
property
page 2.
10,000 and then allocation percentage is 100%.
Well, it costs the property.
It's up there too.
10.5 million.
10 million, never mind. I read that
Yeah,
wrong.
but it's based on square footage.
Yeah, it is.
It's
Right, so,
That's it. My apologies. My
Sorry.
glasses aren't seeing that, but that's how much the actual building cost.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Mhm.
I read that
if
wrong.
that was the deduction.
I know, really. Yes, absolutely.
I-
Sorry.
negotiation.
I completely read that wrong. I
So anyway,
apologize.
that's all right. So anyway,
That's good. I mean, I
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, motion passes. I think I want to go to item number 12. And I want to pause because this is really important discussion and conversation. And so Joycelyn, thanks for being on, and hopefully you're able to follow the conversation here. So actually, let's do item number 11. And then because that leads up to number 12. So,
how about if you want for voting, you want to do 11?
11's not a voting item.
But it leads into 12.
It leads into 12.
Yeah.
Already?
Hey, Jake, do you want to take this one?
So, yes, so we've been talking about doing a long-term building maintenance plan. We'd this part of our mandate going forward is to put something together. We had basically the fiscal year of 22-23, and we were going to, once we got to the end, we were going to kind of figure out how we were going to go. I put together a long-term plan, which is roughly till about 44, because most of our buildings, our major items like the roof and the HVAC, they're 20-year items. We've got some 10-year items, and mostly in that area, you're talking about like asphalt and curbs and like that, stuff, furniture that are under 10. But as we were progressing forward, the chair had asked me to put together something like a shorter term for the 3 to 5 year. And that's what this is, that's in board doc. It's really like a 5-year long term. And it really covers things like, we really didn't work on underneath the building during the capital improvement plan. We as a gesture to get as much money into the buildings as possible, at the very beginning of the capital improvement plan, we had a roof survey done. And we came back it was really nice. They said, hey, your roofs are in pretty good shape. So rather than just replacing them because you can, in a lot of cases, you're going to get 5 to 8 to 10 years more on several of these roofs. So we made the decision to pull the roofing money out of the capital improvement plan and put that into the buildings. Because, if you can get 5 to 8 more years on a roof and it's not leaking, it didn't make a lot of sense to let's just replace it because we're here. And that's when you do roofing, you can actually tend to do most roofing without having to close down the building. So that generated a lot of income back to us. But of course, now we're coming into, we've actually been doing this for a little over 5 years now. We started in June of 2018. And so I put together this particular list for what I thought were going to be the 5-year plan. I work pretty closely with Aaron Gordon, our facilities manager. I've talked to several of the branch managers. And so that's what this particular term is. And then I've also got a larger one that I can, obviously we can bring to another building committee meeting if we need to. Did I answer all your questions on that, or?
Well, there may be some to come, but.
But that's kind of what we did. This is a living document, in my opinion. We can continue to assess as we go forward. I am not a believer of, it's 20 years with few exceptions. It's 20 years. Let's replace it. Well, if it's still operating and it's still doing what we needed to do, then I don't agree with that. The only exception, and this is from our HVAC expert, is typically when an HVAC has about a 20-year commercial lifespan. And you can push it past 20 years, but you run the risk of it failing and then you not being able to do anything about it for several months. So when that 20 years hit, we really want to come pretty close to replacing the HVAC itself. The other stuff, like roofs, some carpets are obviously a different thing. We're working on that, but we're not going to replace all the carpets after 13 to 15 years. We're going to replace the ones that have the most traffic. And that's how we're going to go forward with it. So we really didn't have any of that when I got here. I may be speaking out of turn, Susan, but that's
True.
So I've kind of with this maintenance thing, I'm basing it a lot more on traffic versus everybody gets it. Colburn Road gets a lot more traffic than Camden Point. So they shouldn't.
Is there a motion there?
They shouldn't both be on the same schedule to replace the carpet, right? And so little things like that, when we do our cleaning, we do our cleaning based on foot traffic as well. Again, I'll go back to my Colburn Road. It's 2 to 3 times a year. And Camden Point, I'm pushing for once about every 18 months or 2 years. Because again, you got to look at I think it's dollars well spent to take care of the carpets. That's another thing that we really didn't have in place when I got here. We weren't cleaning the carpets regularly, so of course they're not going to last as long. So anyway, that's all the things that they're going into. There's much more. I could talk about this for a while, but I don't want to bore you. But I wanted you to know that there's a lot that goes into this maintenance plan. I just didn't throw a bunch of numbers up there. I did actually do some due diligence on several of them, and I guess I'll turn that over now. Stop talking.
Okay. So this isn't a decision item, but this is an important thing that we need to go through. And just as a reminder, our finance chair on several different occasions said that we needed to establish a building maintenance reserve fund. We had a presentation. We adopted a policy to do so. Part of it was we needed to say, well, what does the numbers might suggest that we need, and attended to that. Then we also say, well, now that we know the numbers, how do we sort of fund that? And so frankly, I must live in a small, narrow-minded world. I thought, well, gosh, we're about finished with all these buildings, and Jake, sends us, and then, it's not an inconsequential number that you see in the upcoming years, and it makes sense. Staff should be complimented for kind of putting the money in the new buildings and getting that, and we don't have a significant amount of deferred maintenance, but it is headed our way, and we would be mindful to acknowledge that. So that's just my way of comment. I actually want to ask staff to talk about this building, because when I look at it, I see a lot of the big numbers are associated with this particular facility. And I think staff maybe, because they didn't want to say, well, let's go fix our building, and as being seen as being, why would we take care of the headquarters first when we should take care of the public facilities? But these numbers made it apparent to me that there are issues with this building that perhaps I was not aware of and not acknowledged.
Matt?
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I appreciate what you said, Brent. I really want that message to go forward. Yes, the capital improvement plan is winding down, but that's not the end of taking care of the buildings. We've put a lot of money into this. We've done a lot of work and effort, and we'd like to keep them up. It's very important to invest that money afterwards to have that set forward to keep the buildings where they were for another 20 or 25 years at least. As the HQ building, this building, and again, some of this is stuff that I've learned from legacy. But the bottom line about this building, I believe it's been expanded 2 times. And when it was expanded, to put it delicately, I don't think that the planning went in for the whole HVAC system and to make sure that everybody had the same amount of air. And they did a good job with it, but I don't think they did it in that aspect. And I think what they were saying is we need to expand and we need to do it inexpensively. And so we went forward with it. What we're having right now, especially with our HVAC system, is you can go to Susan's office and it'll be 65 degrees. And you can go to another office.
It's cold.
On the other side here and it'll be 78. And as much as we try, and Aaron's really good at this, as much as we try because of the way the system's developed and because of the way the buildings have been done, the HVAC is at this point inadequate to properly maintain the temperature. And here's what I will say what we do for the libraries in general is it's 70 in the summer and 68 in the winter. That's industry standard. I actually went out and looked for that because that's how we want to run forward. We can't do that in this building. It's not possible with the way the HVAC system is. We also have to be looking into this building is coming near to its capacity. We are continuing to grow, which is a great thing because of the services that we're offering and the things that we're able to do for the public, but we're continuing to grow. And while growth is good, we've got to have a place to house these folks so that they can run, essentially what I look at the headquarters being is we're doing the strategic planning, we're doing the policies and procedures. And we're mandating those and we're going forward with those. But this building's a lot more than that. Down here, we've got delivery, which does all the deliveries every single morning. Over here, we've got facilities, which is, not only do they do internal stuff, but they also do external stuff out on all the different buildings. And then, of course, here, we've got senior leadership. And then we've got the children's. We've got, I could go on and on. There's a bunch of different areas here that actually push things to the libraries itself, which is what we allow to the public. So it behooves us, in my mind, to have a decent work environment. And I have heard from many people, Susan is not the only one, many people that their office is not comfortable. In order to do that correctly, we need to hire an MEP. We've been leaning heavily on our MEP, mechanical engineering, we've been leaning heavily on True Engineering, who is our major MEP for the capital improvement plan. We need to hire them to come in, do their tests, figure out what they need to do. Then we need to replace the system as needed. There's going to be some duct work that needs to be done. We might need to add another machine on the top to push the air the way it needs to be. And that's not cheap. I have been in discussion, Aaron has been in discussion with True about this, and the number that I put in front of you is the number that came from him. And so in order to continue to, in my mind, be progressive and have a decent work environment, folks, we need to do this not fairly quickly, but it needs to be sooner rather than later.
So I think others may be better at math, but I just came up with about $2.7 million when you take the HVAC and and the roof, and in some senses, it's just like a bigger number than I would have anticipated. So I just think it would be good maybe to list this as a separate topic for a separate meeting and say, well, let's stop and look and say, well, what do we need from a building standpoint? And
Yeah, there was a meeting last night and comments were made that on this part of the building, the air conditioning was required, and the other side, the heating was required, and just, concerns like that, I'm assuming are from the add-ons. And it's a pretty naive question or comment, I acknowledge, but I noticed that it seems as if, again, just impression, is that a lot of the spaces are kind of chopped up. Would it be wise to engage the service of like an architectural or, commercial or building architects to say, look, maybe we don't need cubicles and walls, maybe different approaches for, first of all, efficiency, but then the comfort factor too. I mean, if you're going to just do air conditioning, maybe we, walls and everything else we should get looked at.
I'm glad you asked that, Ron.
We had that conversation too. We play musical offices on a regular basis.
Well, yeah, for example, to go to different sections, seem like going down these caverns with offices on the side, and it's not as if we have terribly secret things going on. I'm just maybe if a more of an open approach would be something worth looking at.
We've talked about that too. So
That's so I think this is on a want versus need kind of thing. Well, that question will come up, but from a need viewpoint, the HVAC is but from a need want, I like to call it a need want. And the reason why I say that is because there's two ways to go about it, Ron. We can go back and we can just fix the HVAC and it'll be a little more comfortable in here for everybody. Or we can take it forward. Brent talked about the 2.7 million. That's where you talk about, gutting a good portion of this and making it more logical because we have the area and everything. Everyone's utilizing the space correctly. Like I said, I don't understand how they did the expansion, but I know that it's two different expansions and they just kind of added on. And, as a caveat to that, one person said, well, why don't we move? Why don't we go find new land and everything like that? Well, that's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
We got about 60,000 square feet here. And it works, but it could work better. This would be a solid investment towards the HQ and the staff running as we go forward. I don't propose moving. I would say we might think about leasing a little extra space someplace close to the area. So but that would be that's an option.
Jake, does this building have the structural integrity to build up?
I would have to ask that question. I would say yes, but I would have to ask that question. Well, let me back up for a minute, Ron. My natural inclination is to say yes, but I ran into a lot of problems remodeling buildings and things like that. So I'm going to have to say,
sure,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because of all the problems I ran into. That's a really good question. And I will get that answer for you. But I'm hesitant to say yes.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I like that.
so for me, this document surfaced this question, I can't tell you the number of times and years that I've been here and this is the most cogent explanation that I've heard about the deficiencies of our building. And in some senses, it's, we have a staff that just kind of comes in and just kind of adapts and do that. So we just need to sort of put this as like a special project at some point. What does it look like? What would it cost? What would be alternative configurations? How would we do that? When would we do that? How would we pay for that? But in some ways, I would hope that this is something that we could do in the next year or 18 months. We've been going flat out on our new buildings, but once we finish the established building program, I think we should quickly turn our attention, to the headquarters, because in some senses it involves more complicated decision than replacing a sidewalk, which is deficient, and what does it mean? How do we use it? How do we utilize space? And the dollar amount and all that stuff elevates it in my mind to like a special project. So anyway, helpful, good conversation about that. Does anybody see anything else in Jake's
I have a question.
5-year plan?
Just reading down through here and then your numbers in the right-hand column, how do those, where do those come from? What are the totals of so far down and then another total?
They're basically what I did was I totaled them and then I put a yearly total. And
It took
so.
me a minute to figure it out too. If you go down to 2023, there's the total for the whole year. When you get
Okay,
2024,
got it.
there's the whole, and these are the
Yeah.
individual projects that make up those
Just for
numbers.
that year?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that took me a minute
Got
too.
So is there a way I can make that clear? I'm sorry, I was trying to be.
No, that's great. I
No, I think you're
I
fine.
didn't connect it with the years over there.
Yeah,
Put a label at the top, say yearly total
yes. that would
on
be
that
good.
column, that upper cell.
Yeah,
That
put
would be
a
great.
little thing up there by year or yearly total on that blank spot.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can do that.
So in talking about this, we're not approving these projects.
No.
We're just trying to get ourselves some understanding, which is something that we, frankly, as we're focusing on other things, hadn't done and achieved. So any other questions or any more discussions?
I just my thought, maybe just as a heads up for Jake, if we're going to have this reserve of funds set aside, actual cash in the bank, I think it'd be helpful to have on an ongoing basis, remind the board that this is money allocated for a specific fund. And I think that everybody knows an absolute agreement, but I don't think we can necessarily commit future boards for not dipping into that reserve. So I think the more we can reinforce the fact that these funds are already designated and allocated, it would be really good to reinforce the fact that it's not some unallocated petty cash fund.
Yeah, I agree. I'd actually like to, and this will lead into it, I'd actually prefer it to be a little bit more fluid than it is right now. If we put it into one reserve fund, then you really can only use it for maintenance. But what if something happens down the road and we need to do a quick capital improvement? We can't really touch that fund if it's designated as reserve maintenance. I mean, we can play the language, but I think it makes more sense to pull it up into the actual capital fund, so that should we need to do something, should something break, we can read. Obviously, if it breaks, that's maintenance. But should something come up, it would be better to be able to have more fluidity of that. That's just my personal opinion. That when we put it in these little things, it becomes we might need the money, but we can't technically use it, and that limits us.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of allocating for the real property, in total, maintenance, replacement, that sort of thing, as opposed to once it gets off ground and stuff on the ground, it hands off.
Okay. Let's go to 12.
I have one more
Go
question.
on, certainly.
Down on the bottom of Jake, it says access control. What is that?
Glad you asked that, Mike.
You guys work this out.
So we have access control, and basically when we come in, each employee has their badge, and they put it up next to the badge. We go forward. Well, the system that runs it behind it, the software, is ancient.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
It's
Ancient.
ancient.
It's like 20+ years old.
Yeah.
That's too old for everything that we've gone forward. For instance, what I'd like to be able to do, I'd like to be able to say, hey, if we're at Lee Summit and somebody comes in, wouldn't it be nice to coordinate that with the picture of them? Which we had the video cameras. We spent a lot of money to upgrade all of our security systems. We can have something that would link into it if we had a newer system. We would be able to do things a little bit easier if we had a newer system. This system is just, the more I dig into it, the more I'm like, man.
Okay.
There's a lot of manual manipulation
Yes.
because it's not supported anywhere. It's no longer maintained. It's
Okay.
been, it's 20 years old, it's old technology, so it's a lot of staff time to manually manipulate people's cards. And does it work? Doesn't work? Can you, remotely go in and do something? Can you even go in and remotely do it? Or do you have to be on site to do it? And
Yeah.
we just updated the software, which means all the keystrokes and everything would have to be updated, which is why you have such a high number for that. But it would just be, in the long run, it would be less staff time to maintain it and to go forward.
It would also integrate the systems
Yeah.
more readily, and it would, I believe, in my conversation with Dustin, that it would increase the safety. Because you just have the ability to do so much more. And again, we spent all this money on these great buildings, but that was not within my vision. This just came up within the last month or so as we were talking about different things. I was like,
Okay.
we've got a 20-year-old system that essentially you have to go in and manually manipulate if you got an employee who's moving from one building to the other. That shouldn't be something that takes,
Right.
Yeah.
You have to reassign
manually-
them to the new.
You have to reassign them and then deactivate their card at that building and move them over to this building. And yeah,
Okay.
it should be a couple keystrokes, but it's not.
it's not.
I think from what I understand, it's at least 15 to 20 minutes work, if not more.
Michael, thank you for your question. So
What?
I said, thank you for your question.
Yes, I
I was
appreciate
looking
it.
at that.
Well, but so it begs the question, do you have to do this all at one time? Because you have to, or you can do it building by building? Could you stage this and phase this?
The short answer is yes. That's how I would want to do it anyway. I wouldn't want to do the whole thing. I would want to do it in phases because I want to make sure that it's working correctly in the bigger buildings and then push it down to or whatever Dustin recommends. That's just in my on top of my head. It would be more important to make it work at Colburn Road, Green Hills, because they're our largest buildings, and then filter that down
Yeah.
versus starting at
Makes sense.
Clay Como or something like that.
So you prove it out with just step by step.
Right.
So yeah, we would work together and do it in either a 2 or a 3 phase. I think 3 phase would be probably ideal. I'm a 3 phase guy myself. That's why I say that. So, but by doing that, we would take bigger branches, medium-sized branches, small branches. Yeah. Or again, I'm not the expert on this. Dustin is, but I would work closely with him on that. Yeah.
Sweet.
So let's, like the headquarters, let's make this a topic for another, building committee meeting and have Dustin come in and understand it a little bit more. And because frankly, this is something else I was not aware of. So I've been in this room, a lot of discussions about cybersecurity, but I've never heard us really talk about
Building security.
building
Yeah.
security. So, okay. So again, Michael, thank you for the question.
So thanks for the answer. That's good. I'm glad that.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go to item number 12. Like I said, apologies for jumping around. I'm going to let staff kind of organize this conversation a little bit. There is a listed motion. We may or may not vote on it. If we do, there may be a slightly amended version of that all, and I think the discussion will inform that. I want to let you know I was on a call with Jake and Susan and Juan yesterday a little bit about this, and this really has to do with our investments and liquidity and our ability to fund our projects that are well underway. So I don't know who wants to kick it off or take the lead.
I'll kick it off and probably pass it off to Quan. This is the investments is actually an agenda item on the finance committee meeting for next week as well. That agenda will be posted later today. In working with several years ago, we moved all of our investments to Central Trust. Our investment policy allows investments to be up to 5 years, as long as we have enough cash flow rolling in and out of the various funds to meet our bills over the course of each year. I don't know up until that point if we did a lot of 5-year. Quan would know that better than I. I'm really coming in at the tail end of a lot of this, so I've been learning a lot the last month. Right now, Central Bank has taken the position that they automatically invest everything for 5 years. This is going to impede some of our bill paying in a timely fashion because they have locked them down. And with the interest rates, with inflation and everything that is going on right now, cashing them in and reinvesting them could potentially lose us quite a bit of money. So the capital, typically during the year, whatever is revenue over expenses, we move into the capital projects fund. We're still interested in that and still continuing that process, but maybe not starting it off because we'd initially thought that we would just front end and seed the building maintenance plan. But in light of 3 more buildings that have yet to be, we haven't broken ground on any of them. And now we're talking about headquarters as well. We may need to have that a little more fluid, which is why Jake, I think, is more interested in putting it in the capital projects fund. Quan can address the actual ins and outs of the investments better than I can. But essentially we've got the funds to do everything. It's just accessing them in a timely fashion that's going to cause us some problems in the next couple of years. Quan, did I cover that appropriately? Quan and Gordon met with Central Trust while I was at MLA, and Quan can tell you more about those conversations if you want, but I do know that it will be it's a discussion item on next week's agenda as well.
So essentially, what we're asking is with we'd like an amendment to the motion to basically, when you read the motion, it says move to approve the recommendation to the full board to move FY 21-22 revenue over expenditure totally $5 million to the capital projects fund, period.
Yeah, which has been updated.
Yeah, we've already updated.
It's been amended on the screen.
It's on the screen.
So
I'll just provide a few comments. I share with staff. I felt like the farmer who was asset rich and cash poor, and so as we've got, bills coming up really around Green Valley, we've got bills coming up really around East Independence. We have bills coming up really around Riverside. There was some discussion, and I was not supportive of it, is that we should press ahead and complete these projects because what we know about the inflation and really around construction, that will exceed anything it is that we might be able to do. And we just need to, while we don't have a clear plan right now, we needed to commit to go ahead and do that and then work out a financial strategy that can support the obligations that we incur. So the past practice, and I understand that we are shifting, and as we think about money and finances, the past practice is that almost invariably there would be revenues over expenses, and at the end of the fiscal year, that would be transferred to the capital improvement fund or the capital budget. Stunningly for anybody that's involved with a public body, we built Whitney's because we had done that for several years, and we didn't even, the original Whitney's, the new library there, because we had enough funds in there, we'd accumulated them over a period of years without ever going to the public for a vote. I mean, can you imagine a school district building a school building without a public vote or something along that line? But as we more closely try to match our revenues and our expenses on outgoing years, we're not going to have the additional money, to do that. So you can't say, oh, well, we can anticipate having 3 million, next year to roll over, if you would, into the capital fund or that. That's not going to be the case. So the feeling was, or the hope was, to take this 5 million. This was the amount that was identified by our auditors at the end of the year, and put this in the capital fund in some senses to give us some liquidity, really to address our upcoming bills. My first thought, and you can see this in the board docs, was to move this into the capital reserve fund as a way to fund that based on the prior presentation that we have. But we may have to delay these maintenance projects until some of the liquidity as some of these investments come due and become available to us all. So that's the general conversation, and that's why I want us to see the building maintenance fund considerations prior to this. But our immediate need is how do we provide some financial flexibility to take care of Green Valley, to take care of East Independence, and to take care of Riverside.
And fiscally, from a fiscal viewpoint, the money is, again, this is my opinion, based on what I've seen in the past and what I've seen going forward. It's better spent on the new buildings now than it is to say, well, let's just put the East Independence in a little package, and we'll try to do it again next year or the year after next. It's going to cost more. It's going to cost more in two ways. First of all, the construction is going to be more. Second of all, you're going to have to go out and find a new contractor, a new construction manager. You're going to probably have to, you might not have to find a new architect, but you're going to have to bid for one. So that's a lot. You got that there's that cost that we don't really look at, preparing the RFQs, doing the interviews. Are we going to get the same quality that we've come to expect from J.E. Dunn and from SAP and Helix? So you've got that cost as well. If you decide to, we're just going to stop the program for a little bit, and we'll just continue it later because then we can afford it. I'm not saying we can't do that. From a fiscal viewpoint, it makes more sense to put the money into this with someone we know, with someone we've seen the results from, and we can push a little bit of the maintenance off a little bit because we have been tracking that. We do that on a regular basis. Aaron is excellent at what he does. He gives me updates on a daily basis. I feel very confident that our buildings are in good enough shape that there's not going to be any neglect or anything on the maintenance side, but we are going to get East Independence built, Green Valley built, Riverside built, and then move forward with that. Because those projects once we get those done, the maintenance will be fairly minimal.
And the feeling was, while we need to develop a financial strategy by January, we would have a better idea about some numbers, and rather than trying to, chart a path now. Frankly, this is going to require some work between the finance committee and the building committee and the full board, because there's just a variety of different ways in which that could be done. But the feeling was, for the building committee, what we would like to do is vote on the motion that's on the screen to take the revenue over expenses and put that into the capital fund, for that being part of the answer or part of the solution about giving us liquidity to fund these projects. Was that too contorted or too obtuse or? Okay. Any further discussion? Does somebody mind making the motion that's on the screen there?
So move.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Don't know.
Cody, is Jocelyn still on the call?
No, it looks like her iPad is, but her phone is not. I'll try bringing her back in.
Chair will vote aye.
Do we no longer have a quorum?
Yeah,
We
we have
do.
a
Yeah, you have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Yeah, we have a quorum.
Yeah. The chair will vote aye. Anybody voting no? Anybody abstaining? Okay.
I will list Jocelyn as not present at both.
This is not the last time we will be talking, about this, and this conversation will pop up in different ways and different committees. And
I was just thinking, is the 5-year bond position pretty heavy? Because I'm thinking if we need to tap into that, we'd have to sell at a discount, I would imagine.
That's correct. We have not much. We have about $4 million in cash. Cash we have. And also only $270,000 will be maturing in December in current fiscal year. I'm talking about the capital project fund, not operating fund.
Sure.
Next year, is $2 million. The year after next year is $5 million. So for the next 2.5 years, we only have $7 million plus the $4 million cash we have. After the third year, we will have a lot, like over $10 million maturing.
I'm gonna jump back. Let's go through the item number. Jake, I let you get to choose, 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think 5's gonna take a little more time.
All right, let's do 6.
Okay.
We'll get through everything on here.
Okay, building construction updates. We currently have actually 2 projects now, correct myself. We have 2 projects in motion. And first one is North Oak. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Next one after that. Okay, so this is North Oak. We have a building now. Structural steel is up. You can see the unique shape that we've seen from the renderings. It's looking really cool. I'm very excited about the progress that we've made. And the most important thing about this is that this particular project is going to be solid. We're not going to have to go in period in 2 years. We had some issues with that before. Yeah, little bit of backstory, and I don't want to talk too much, but I do want to run this because it was pretty impressive. So the city put a pipe through underneath old North Oak. And this was apparently 20 some odd years ago. I don't even know. So they put a pipe for drainage underneath it.
I remember when they did that, my office was on North Oak back in those days.
Okay. So what we found out was said pipe wasn't operating correctly because it was full of lots and lots of stuff. I'm not going to quote the site superintendent, but what he basically said was your problem was the water was coming to this edge right here and it couldn't flow through because it was completely jammed up because there wasn't any maintenance done apparently. And then the water was seeping around the foundation of the building. So what happened? The building listed or that we had some issues. So that pipe has been completely cleaned out. We've added another one. And now I'm just putting this out to the building committee so that you know. Now apparently some of the water is going to other properties like it was supposed to be doing in the first place and not ours. So we might hear about that in the future. If we do, you heard it here first. So anyway, so this is the beginning. That story fascinates me that we're having problems and the water is issued. Well, yeah, the water was issued because there was no. What he essentially said was we weren't doing the maintenance that we were supposed to do. Another plug for putting the money up front versus having to worry about the building because you know how much money. Well, Susan, you probably do because you've been here long enough. Yeah. You know how much money they put into making sure that the building didn't list or anything like that.
Awesome.
But that makes total sense when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so this is the front of the building. Then next slide. This is the back of the building. And you can see a little bit to the left there. They're starting to grade out the parking lot. Again, it's continuing along really well. I'm very, it's fun to see this particular phase because you can say, I saw it then. And then next slide. So this particular one is inside the building. And I put this one up because I wanted to kind of give you an idea what it looked like. You can see on the left and more on the right, you can see they're putting the roofing up. Mm-hmm. And pushing it all around. And so this is, the last picture before they roofed all the way over in it. Next slide. So this is on the main level. And this will be the stairs that go up to the area with the community room and the collab rooms. And, you can kind of see one of the things about this particular building that I always liked is just to the right of the stairway, you're going to see a really neat color that kind of draws you to that stair. Obviously, you won't see that for many, many more months, but I want you to think about that when the building gets complete. It's really neat how it draws you to the stair to go up to. So next slide. This is where the main collection is going to be housed. This is the actual, and I'm going to, my next slide will kind of give you a better idea of what this is going to look like. But this is where we're going to have the main, the adults. The children's are going to be on the main floor as you walk in. And then as you go down, you'll have the majority of the collection. Next slide. From this area where the majority of the collection is, you can see the stairway and you can see what I call the reading stairs, where it's gonna be real similar to what the Red Bridge has with the wood. And you know, kids can kind of step down if they want to, but there's different areas to sit and work. And that's the area. And, you know, just above that and to the right is where the entrance is. So next slide. Green Valley.
Can you pause on North Oak? Any questions about North Oak?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So, this whole area is below ground level.
Mhm.
So there's like a 4-foot wall, concrete walls around 4 feet. And then you got these posts in here and it looks like there's open space around the post. What's happening with those posts?
Slide 6.
You know, this area, those areas,
What's happening?
Yeah,
They're
it's like-
gonna fill that in. That's gonna be, you know, and basically those are the structural,
Yeah.
that's all that.
but
So
what are they gonna fill that in with? What's happening there?
that's a really good question. I would suffice to say that what they've done with this right here is they're gonna actually reinforce these areas. And that's why it's still open.
Okay, well, that's my question, because here's, you know, if you look at all the pillars
Mhm.
that are down there, that's fairly deep right there.
It is.
So my question is, how's that gonna affect? And since it's below ground level, and you know, we all knew this, but you know, is there any fear is not the right word, but is there any occasion where we would be dealing with another water issue, you know, in this?
I think that's a really good question. I don't, based on what we've done to level out the ground and to solidify the ground, I don't see there being any water issues. I'm pretty confident about that. We've taken a lot of mitigation efforts. We put, you know, solid rock. We're building, this is all poured on solid rock.
Yeah.
Whereas before, we just poured it on
Right.
slab over ground.
Fill
Yeah.
dirt stuff.
We filled it with solid rock. I will find out for you, Michael. I'm certain that what they're doing with that is they're gonna pour reinforcement around it. And that's why you see that particular hole. It's not gonna look like that when it's finished.
Right, yeah, I didn't figure it was, but I'm looking at it now
I hear
thinking,
you.
Yeah.
you
I hear
know,
you.
that just looks kind of weird right now, and I'd like to know what's going in there.
I will get back to you on that. I
Okay,
don't know the exact, I don't want to lead you down the wrong path, but that as in my past, that's what they did. They
sure,
put those particular areas and then they pour more concrete in of a
Okay.
different grade to actually solidify the pier itself.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Jay, just to confirm, the pipe we're talking about, that's part of the Kansas City, Missouri storm sewer system, isn't it?
That's my understanding.
Because that's their problem.
Well, it's their problem, but it's really our problem because when it gets jammed up and everything like that, clearly people weren't clearing it out.
Oh, okay, yeah, but that would be because of their negligence in not cleaning it out.
I believe
It's
so.
not something that the library did.
So I don't want to state this wrong. I agree with you in concept, but I would be willing to bet that someone else would come back and could say,
Yeah.
it's your property. You're responsible for
Mhm.
maintenance on your property. But we've all had that issue before. Well, your trees growing up the only time it really doesn't happen is when your trees growing up in the power line. And the power people are going to come out because they don't want to
Yeah.
have to worry about that.
All right,
But if
they're gonna
it's-
cut
they're
those
gonna cut their
branches
trees
off.
off.
Exactly, but if your tree's growing up and the roots are taking over the system, well, that's on you, right? So
Yeah.
I will investigate that a little bit.
I was just curious, yeah.
But it's a good question.
Just, well, like I said, my history with this location. And I can't tell you over the years. Yeah, just the devastation that occurred around that issue. So you're saying they put another pipe under?
Same pipe, we just built over that. They
Okay.
cleaned it out. Now we put another pipe in
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's another pipe.
for our
One
retention.
that's there cleaned out, and then we put another pipe in for a drainage. So, okay. So that pipe go on top of that pipe or beside that pipe or?
I'm gonna say it was at a different location, but it is
Oh, okay.
essentially beside it, yes.
Okay,
Anticipated completion date?
May of 2023.
Okay. All right.
23, say?
6 months, 7 months.
Yeah.
Now, if it comes back and it's June,
Oh, God.
That's right.
things happen, you know, but I'm thinking May of 2023.
We're making solid progress.
Yeah, no, it's great.
And it gets done when it gets done.
Exactly.
It's good. All right. Go to the next one if no further questions.
All right, so this is Green Valley. We're just about through with the permitting process. They've got the go ahead. They're grading out the area. Something to think about on your calendars. Jim, I'm going to steal. Oh, Jim's not here anymore. I'm going to steal thunder anyways. It's not here. We're looking at a groundbreaking date ceremony, the 10th of November. We will send more of this out, but I just want to kind of put that in your minds. November 10th is when we're looking to do this. It'll give. So the big thing with Green Valley is there's no parking. So one of the things when we do a groundbreaking ceremony, you know, we got people coming in, we want them to be able to park and to be able to walk to the site. So the reason why we're extending it over the month is to get the ability to have some clearing and have the ability to actually pull in and have a little parking lot area so that we don't, you know, our backup was we were going to transport people from the old Green Valley site to the new site. We might have that as an ancillary. But the main thing is we want people to be able to come in and park to go to the ceremony.
Okay.
So that's Green Valley. Any questions?
Anticipated completion date for that one.
This one's a little tougher. I'm thinking that this is going to be late summer of 2023.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. This is our most up-to-date rendering of East Independence. I really like the way this looks when you're coming in. And remember, it's off of Little Blue and Heartland, I believe, is the so we've got a light coming in. So that's really nice. But when you come to that light, this is what I believe you're gonna see.
Traffic light.
Yeah, traffic light.
Traffic light, I'm sorry, yeah. And so this is the front, and then next slide. This is what it'll look like driving by. We're going to utilize most of the trees on the area. We're going to try not to clear off too many of them. We're going to have a nice little patio area as you're coming in. It's going to be a really neat design. Their theme concept is kind of they talked about lanterns. So when you come in, you'll see, you know, you'll have that envisionment, and they've designed it as you come in to draw you to the different windows so that you can see the area and everything. So East Independence is probably going to go out to bid at the end of this month. And then we will gather up everything. I will discuss with J.E. Dunn what the GMP looks like. And I would like to propose that the building committee meeting next month happens right before the actual board meeting, because we typically don't have a board meeting in December. So if we were to do a building committee at the end of the month, we'd have to wait almost a month. Well, it'd be at least 6 weeks. And some of the pricing, some of the stuff that they're doing, like we talked about with Green Valley, they're not willing to hold it for 6 weeks. They're willing to hold it for about 30 days. And sometimes even that's a scramble. So
The regularly scheduled meeting in November would fall on Thanksgiving Day
Yes.
anyway, and we won't meet on that.
right. So I would like to propose that we do it early that way. That way it's out of the way. We don't have to worry about it in December. And we push forward.
Talk with me about that. We would not have another building committee meeting in October. So we would do this in November. I appreciate the flexibility of the building committee to meet in a timely fashion. to act on guaranteed maximum prices. And so anyway, so we will plan to have a meeting on November 15th, and we'll get the materials out ahead of time. So if that's.
And the goal in my mind, unless there's, I didn't talk to you about this, Brent, but in my mind, the goal would be just to talk about the GMP. So we wouldn't be here forever. And then you could roll into the board meeting and push forward so that it wouldn't seem like it was an interminable day, 4 or 5 hours or whatever the case may be. So my goal for next meeting is to basically talk about GMP, and that's it.
And we'll try to get the material out ahead of time. So if anybody has any questions or something, is that we have sufficient time for staff to provide a response in the meeting. So
But typically what we do when we run on this is we, from a time viewpoint, I'll see it, I don't know, 3 or 4 days before the 15th. And then we can get that forward to you. So.
appreciate everybody's accommodation on that. So that's East Independence.
All right. Next slide. Here's first look schematic drawing at Riverside. Can y'all see it?
Sweet.
Looks different than what we have.
It looks different, but it fits into the neighborhood.
Yes, it does.
It really
Yeah.
fits
I like
in.
So if you can envision this, there's a little plaza way on the front as you're walking in. And, Riverside has that big clock tower.
Yep,
And this particular property is right
right behind the clock tower.
correct. And so our thought process is you're gonna have an entrance on Vivian, you're gonna have an entrance on Gateway, and they're gonna come, you can go either way. And then you walk into this, you'll see you can turn around, see the clock, and they've incorporated into the park area. And then behind it, which is the next slide. Behind it is the park.
Right.
So we're designing the building so that you can see out in the back area.
That's
And
great.
we haven't quite, we're fairly far along with the schematic drawing, but really what I wanted to do is I wanted to see if there was anything that you all objected to. Go back to the previous slide, please, Cody. With the building. Because I will tell you that my first time when I saw that their schematic drawing, it was kind of blah. I was like, I want this to look more like I wanted it to fit in better. And
Yeah.
Susan can verify for me. That was one of the first things I said to them. They don't like hearing that, but it's our building. And
Yeah.
I really like the way this looks now. This has got, it's going to be pretty easy to see from either side. It's going to be its own cozy kind of. It's got that neighborhood library feel, which is what I think we're really pushing
That's what
for.
we need to have. The mayor of Riverside probably will be really excited first time she lays eyes on this. The only question I have is that library sign down there, sitting on the ground.
That's a good question.
I mean,
I'm going to address that. I'm going to address that and see if I think the reason why they put that there is because even if they put it on the roof, you might not be able to see it because of the way the property itself is around. But I'm going to ask them about that.
I don't know, maybe you could put it on this end down here or
Yep.
up over.
Above the entry.
It's just, that's the only comment I would have is
Yep.
that library sign.
Yep.
But other than that,
Thanks, Michael. That's great input.
I just think it looks like it's got enough pizzazz, and it fits in with the whole scheme of things, neighborhood.
It has more pizzazz than the first drawings because even I, having been in my first schematic drawing design, I went, this really doesn't wow me at all. And I don't think they wanted to hear that either. That was my very first meeting with them. And I'm like, you guys,
Yeah.
this feels weird. It's not the right feel. It's not the right fit
Yep.
for Riverside, but
Yeah.
they've come a long way and it looks really nice.
Yeah.
It does. I like the impact that it's going to make. The neat part about the new location is that it is walkable. But
Yeah.
the entire majority of the Riverside
That's really-
population without having to cross major streets.
Yeah, that's really important, I think. And, you know, city halls there and
Community centers there.
community centers there.
Yep.
And, yeah. So what, I mean, I'm just posing this question. Should we show the mayor and get her comments
Well,
or not?
I'm gonna pose the question back to you. I don't have an issue doing that. Are you all right with us doing that?
Yes, because we're in the middle of a public meeting, we might, they can go see it on their own, so let's sit down as somebody who's making a
Yeah.
major investment in this project. They've invested more in this building than any
Yeah.
other community, so let's give them the
I think
courtesy
you
of
should just.
Yeah.
sitting down and sharing with them. They're making this project possible for us.
Right.
For us to do, and they were very patient with us.
Yeah.
I could go back and show you the
Yeah.
fan book, earlier
The
design.
fan book. Yeah.
There was
I've got those, I printed them all in a book. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my
Well,
word.
and then there was the second, let's be on the second floor of a bank. So when you look at this, I appreciate Michael's attention. So if you looked at this and you look at this in relationship to Lee Summit, the visibility of that. So if there's some way, or even actually go back to East Independence, you can sort of
Because it's up higher too.
go back a couple,
Go back, what?
one there and one more.
Yep.
So I mean, this is the first time that we've always, in each of the new building designs, is that we've made library prominent and visible in a way, and it shows up there as like, almost like a medallion. And so, anyway, so I think that they can address that or find a way to do that.
I really appreciate your comments. I'll get
Yeah,
back.
I like this stone, you get stone in the, like paver. That's a nice touch. I really like that.
It's just that nice entryway, you know, welcome,
Yeah.
you know, so, and it, because you know, there is a little park and on the other
Yeah.
side, you've got that as well. So
So
I'm,
those are cool, man. I
Yeah.
think they give it a nice,
There's a little bit of texture
yeah.
Cody, can you advance it back to the Riverside slides, Jake?
right there.
Hey, Jake,
I'm sorry.
which direction is that facing?
All right, my cardinal directions are a little off, but what I'm gonna say is to the right is gonna be across from the city hall, and to the left is gonna be does that make sense to you?
Yes, so that fades, so the word library faces Vivian.
Correct.
Yeah, so that, to me, looking at this, that corner facing out, that corner right there faces like north east sort of. That'd be right, Jake?
I believe so. I get my car, on
Yeah.
this particular property,
Yeah,
my cardinal directions are a little off because I'm
Okay.
still working through it and everything like that, so I apologize. But
Yeah, no,
that's a,
This is Brett Sean, that's a drive-through on the backside, I presume. Okay, because I see a little view.
well, actually, you can see, I believe you can see part of the drive-through up to the upper left.
oh, yeah, I see it.
So the parking lot is to the left of where the people are. They're walking in from the parking lot, and
Okay.
then they'll drive up and through and then come around, so.
We work more on this particular project than
Anyway,
anyone, and it should show, be a reflection of the effort that we've made and the investment that the
Yeah.
city of Riverside has made, so.
Pretty exciting, really, see it,
And,
something on paper. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
and this is headed to go out to bid, and
We're gonna try to put this one out to bid first part of January.
Okay.
We had originally wanted to try to get it as close as possible to the East Independence. But when you think about December, from just a work viewpoint, you really only have about 10 days in December, the first 10, where you get a lot of the trade, because that's when people start slowing down, they start thinking about taking that 2 weeks vacation or whatever. And once you get past the 15th, with holiday events and everything going on, we didn't think that we would get our best effort in December, so we pushed it to January.
I think we're through all the updates, so does anybody have any questions about any of these projects? mindful is that we're going to have a building committee in November for just the one project, the GMP for East Independence. We're not going to have one in December. We will have one in January. By January, we'll have a lot sort of going on. So if there's something that staff wants to know about any building project, I just encourage them just to email us or contact us and let us know, because we're closing in on finishing up the capital program.
But we're not done. We're not done with the work.
Okay.
Would be the,
Yeah, let's go to
would be.
let's go to 5. And just as a setup for this, Michael and I met with Jake and had a nice cup of coffee, and Jake started talking about Woodneath. And you think, well, what's left on Woodneath? Because gosh, we've done the house, we built the library, the auditorium is there, and he had some thoughts. And so this is Jake's thoughts about things that we should think about. Understand this is probably our signature property in the entire library system, given the amount of investment that we have, given the historic resources, given the land that we have there, because we don't have any other site that has 33 acres or 33 acres. And so this is a thought about what we might do next, really around the grounds.
So I want to take you back a little over 10 years ago. The Woodneath Master Plan, as it was in its original inception, I just looked this up. It's dated September 21st of 2012.
Oh.
And now here we are in October 2022. And we are, in my mind, we're trying to see through the vision of what the actual property itself needs to look like. And what I mean by that is, what does it look like when you're driving by? What does it look like when you walk the trail, walk up to the cultural node? What are you going to see? How does that work? And so I asked John Green, and I actually got together with Aaron and our landscape architects, Olson Studio. And I asked him, I said, so what is it going to take? First of all, I should preface this with this. We had a major disturbance out in our area for the last 18 months, 24 months, and it was called the Woodneath Auditorium. Now, here's something I didn't know.
Major disturbance.
A major disturbance invites weeds. And we are really right now struggling with a Johnson grass weed issue throughout the property, mainly over towards near where the auditorium is, and in some of the planters and areas like that. So that was what kind of kicked this whole thing off. I was like, well, I don't want to see a bunch of weeds. That's not the plan. So we went through a bunch of conversations, and it started off with that. We've had this disturbance, and now that the disturbance is done, and now that we're going forward, I want to share you what our vision is for to push this property, as Brent said, probably a trademark property, and what it's going to look like. So next slide. So the long-term goal is what we call native prairie, and we call meadow. And before I go into this part, first thing I want to say is why are we looking to restore this? We want to improve the health of all the plants. We want them to become naturally sustainable, but it's going to take a little bit. Right now we've got 30% native grasses, we've got 60% non-native weeds, and 15% of bare soil. So there's some work to be done. We have less than 1% of wildflower. Our goal is 80% grasses and 20% wildflower, and we want that to be sustainable. The benefits of this is, you've got the indigenous land. It'll look a lot like what it possibly looked like back when it was a farm, or prior to even when it was a farm, when it was just a homestead. We've got some diversity, and again, I keep saying sustainability, but that really is the key. We want this to be able to sustain itself. Promotes wildlife habitat. It supports pollinators, beautification, because we're going to get more color out there. It's not just going to be this wild, buffalo grass. And then it'll make it kind of an educational experience as you walk on the trail. And then once it's established, which when I say established, I'm thinking 6 to 8 years-ish maybe even a little bit longer, because they're plants and it's gonna take a while to get rid of the bad and put the new in. We're gonna have less maintenance costs in the end. At the bottom of these, he's referenced what the picture is. That's from the Missouri Department of Conservation. Next slide. Now, this slide's important. Before I start talking about it, I want you to, you know, it's an overhead view of the auditorium, the homestead. So the green area is what we're talking about for prairie restoration. That's when I refer to prairie restoration, that's what we're looking at. The yellow area is meadow. And if you'll notice, the yellow area is kind of next to the cultural node, and there's some purple spots there. Those are where the barn area are and the mechanical area, the mechanic shed. And when you're walking up there, you know, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Then we talk about the blue area, which is the woodlands area, which we've got several different patches of it. And then the last is the wildflower node. I'm sorry, the woodland, which is orange. Let me back up. I've confused myself. Meadow is yellow, woodland is orange, wetland is blue. That's what I meant to say. And then, of course, the wildflower node is going to be the purple. So the actual prairie restoration is about 10 acres. The meadow restoration is about 3 acres. You know, prairie is warm season plants, meadow is cool season plants. We're looking into bringing an actual conservation contractor with the state of Missouri to give us the input that we need to make sure that we're doing this correctly and that we're actually getting natural plants going forward. The whole emphasis of this is Missouri native. That's the whole emphasis. Right now, we're not there. We've got a lot of non-native species that are quite invasive. And you know, we're going to do the project in rotation. We're not going to do it all at once. And we're doing that from a viewpoint of it would be really hard to burn everything down or to spray everything out and hope that would work. We're doing it. We're just going to do it as we progress forward in the seasons. We're going to do one part like the fall and another part in the spring. Next slide. So here's our process. Vegetation removal. By vegetation, we're talking all of it.
So Flint Hills, they burn those off.
Yep, we're talking all, and if we can get permission to burn, that's the best way to do it. Everybody says that burning is the best way to do it. I'm saying this to you all because it's going to be ugly for a bit. Now the process is you burn it off. Yeah, that gets rid of the Johnson grass and all the non-native species. Yeah. And then the first thing you do is you get a nice little blend of plant seed that's going to grow that takes over with a burnt ground area. But that's not the end process. That's just the process to get the plant and to get some growth going. Right. And then we'll eventually go and we'll put select seedlings and go forward to replace that particular area to get to the native. So you can see here we're talking year 1 and 2. This is essentially a 2-year process. And our ultimate goal is to be able to mow when the new growth reaches 12 to 18 inches as needed. Kind of like what we're doing now, but instead of mowing non-native and native together, we'll just be mowing the native just to keep it a little bit under control. Next slide. So John put this in here because we wanted weeds are inevitable. It doesn't matter what we do. We're going to have some weeds, but we have a plan. We have a plan to slowly get forward and eradicate that and make the native plants strong enough to overcome the weeds so that we have less and less as we go forward. You know, you can see years 3 and 4, we'll be cutting by hand or machine just in the spots of the weed growth. Then, you know, again, burning if we need to. And then eventually we're hoping that mowing will no longer be needed and it'll kind of take care of itself. Next slide. Woodland restoration. You know what? Before I talk about this, I want you to go to the next slide. I want you to show you a before This is not that long ago, okay?
Yeah, I remember seeing this.
Okay, and then I want to show you the after. So the before is the non-native, overgrowing, taking control of everything. It's just really bad. We hadn't really done anything, to my mind, since I've been here. And that's what happened. There's a sign right in the middle of the left picture.
To see that.
Okay, and now on the right picture, you can see the sign. It's a little bit further up because he took it a little bit further because he wants you to show you more of it. But that's just how bad the growth was. And of course, we've gotten rid of the blue fence, which has been there forever too. So it's much nicer looking. So let's go back, please. So this is 10 to 12 acres. We're eliminating the non-native growth, and we're going to promote plant and native understory and ground story. And again, we've got a conservation person doing this. John's working really closely with them. This is a process that's 1 to 2 years per 2 acres, so roughly about 10 years. But what we can look forward to is when you go out there and you're walking on the trail or you're looking out the backside of Woodney, you might possibly be able to see the barn structure or the silo itself. Before you couldn't. It was just all overgrown and massive floods. We've done a pretty fair amount of work, but we're just getting started on this side. Again, it's the next slide, the before and after. Next slide. The before and after is, I think that shows you what we're looking at and how much more beautiful it is when the non-native species get taken out. Next slide. All right, so the cultural nodes. So what we're doing here is in the barn, there's a kind of a cement around it, which is going to make hopefully for a natural wildflower planting box. And the machine shed, we've done the same thing. So you've got like a little pop of color there. And then the lawn surrounds are going to be actual lawn as we can get it going. And then off in front of there is going to be the meadow area. So what we're working on right now is we've had some standing water. We've had some issues with drainage. We want to clean that up. And then we want to get the grass growing pretty nicely around both of those areas. So when you go up there, and there's a couple signs off the trail that we put up already. If you hadn't had a chance to walk out there, it's starting to get to be really nice weather to walk. It's pretty neat. And the signs, they just done a fabulous job on the signs. They really are nice.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance, you should go up there and check them out. Next slide. So, wetland area is essentially like, our reservoir or our retention basin or whatever, however you want to name it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to do this as a, conservation and cleaning, maybe even make it a little bit of an educational process. We've got, our goal is 100% native. So it sucks up all the water as it gets drained into there and it just grows. We're going to hand cut and remove the weed growth as we go forward. We're going to try to replant the original seed mix because again, we had that disturbance in several of the areas.
What do you mean by disturbance?
So when you come in and you saw the picture of Green Valley, you come in and you plow that area out and you basically you make you're killing all the natural stuff.
Right.
And of course, if you got a weed versus a natural, for the most part, the weeds are stronger because that's what they do. And so that's what I mean by disturbance.
Okay.
I never looked at it that way, but it really does make a lot of sense.
Sure.
When you think about it, we didn't have Johnson grass issues 5 years ago, but we do now. That's why. So,
Okay.
So the wetland area is it's just a nice way to continue the natural progress that we have out there. Next slide. The walking path. We talked about the walking path quite a bit. The walking path right now is an AB3 composite. It's really nice. It does require maintenance. You do every now and again see weeds coming up through it. Unfortunately, that's really hard to fix. We also see some drainage, some runnels that come through on certain areas when it rains. I will say that when it rains fairly hard, this path is difficult. So I'm trying to find a way to think about the thing and finally push forward for the final phase to put some asphalt in. I feel like when you look at a lot of our major parks around the area, whether it be in the city or in the county, most of those major parks have an asphalt trail going through the woods. So it'd be no difference here. And in my mind, why I'm for it, I know it takes a little bit away from the naturalness, but I'm thinking about things like when it rains hard or when it snows and it melts, the trail essentially becomes impassable. So we don't get anything from that. But if we had the asphalt, when it rained, someone could be walking on it literally right after the rain or while it's raining, and we wouldn't have issues. Not only that, but from a maintenance viewpoint, it's pretty expensive. The cost of doing the asphalt is paying up front what it's literally going to cost us for the next 8 to 9 years to maintain it. So then you get a 10 to 15 year trail that we just, we occasionally do patchwork on. Plus that the drainage will incorporate getting good drainage and everything like that into it, so it stays clear as we're going forward. And finally, from an ADA viewpoint, you really have the ability. You've opened this up to everybody. I would not think that, as I've seen strollers out there, but I think you have to be. I think you have to be pretty careful with which strollers you're taking out there, and so anyway, this is it's a monthly thing as we go forward. So next slide. Just wanted to tell you we're working on lawn surrounds. This is mainly around the auditorium area and around the main area. We're putting an area in that basically is going to stop the weeds eventually, and it's just going to be trimmed down a little bit so that you have an ability to walk out a little bit, maybe look at the grass and stuff, but it's not going to come all the way up. And we're not going to mow it. We're not going to mow it to that fine tuning all the way out, but we should mow it a little bit in the area because it's pleasant to the eye. And it does serve a natural process. Then I believe the last slide is just our traditional landscaping. We're doing the same thing that we've done at all of our other branches. We're doing native Missouri plants. We're making sure that the flower beds are weeded regularly because they get out of control if you don't. And we kind of blended that in with the other landscape that we had at Woodneath. So that's kind of the end of the slides. I really wanted to get this in front of you because I want to make sure that this is the same idea that you have, because I've heard a lot of different things in my 5 years here. So what we're going to do, this is what I feel is the best way to push forward. And I'm not going to take credit for the majority of the work on this. Our landscape coordinator, John Green, did the majority of it. John does a great job at coordinating the landscape on all of our branches. He's got a great heart. He really wants the plants to be natural and native and for everybody to enjoy the property as you come into it. So with that, I'm going to leave it to you. Any questions? But what I hope from you is you're okay with this because it's going to cost a little bit more up front to get where it needs to do from a maintenance viewpoint. But eventually, I think we're going to be able to ease off of that. But we have to spend money up front to do this. But again, I go back to 2012. This is what they drew up in 2012. We are now finally to the point where we can actually make that vision real.
Questions, comments?
Jake, I just want to maybe help me. The area in front of the mansion, everything, it's absolutely elegant. And so we're going to have more, terrible expression, but like golf course type grass, regular grass in that area. Okay, great. And one thing
Just like it is now.
Pardon?
Just like it is now.
Great. And also notice along the pathway itself, it seemed as though there was an area adjacent to both sides that was mowed a little bit. I think that's really helpful, especially if somebody's walking with kids. If you have grass as tall as the youngsters, it might.
I'd agree with you, and that's kind of what we were talking about with the in what was it, slide 11, the transitioning.
Yes,
We're going to transition along the sides of the path as well.
and this was only just in passing comment, but when pre-COVID, whenever that was, when Steve met with the Clay County Commissions and talked specifically about Woodneath. One of the commissioners asked if there might be opportunities for master gardeners to participate. Another one also talked about the Missouri extension. And because this was an actual homestead, their own produce for the table and storage, is something like that realistic to look into?
I mean, I'd absolutely welcome that. In fact, I actually talked about to the master gardeners. Unfortunately, you get their president is either 2 or 3 years, and then you get a new one, and they don't necessarily have the same ideas. The last time I talked to the master gardener was about 3 years ago. They wanted us to put a greenhouse in across the creek, and
Which
well,
was
I think
not,
that's
not done by the Crouch family.
Yeah.
So forget it.
right. Well, I think that's a neat idea. That doesn't match with, that really doesn't match, in my opinion, with what, now that I know more than I knew 3 to 4 years ago,
Right.
with what we're looking at. Because, you'd have to get power out there and water.
Yeah, but that I'm sure was not done in the 19 whatever back by the Crouch family. And also the meadow area, they did have their own dairy. So I think that whole idea of, cattle and everything for that, I think it's just brilliant.
But yes, it's absolutely, I would love to welcome the master gardeners in to possibly help around the homestead.
Yeah.
And some other stuff.
If I might jump in for just a second, I had a couple of conversations with the master gardeners way back when too. And the biggest issue, maybe even more so, was that they didn't have any funding to pay for any of it. They wanted us to fund all of whatever construction was happening there. So yes, that was another major challenge.
I wasn't envisioning actually building anything for people to participate as much as actually, literally get their hands in the dirt. And
Great.
That experience.
Doing the hand weeding and everything like that, that'd be great to have you involved with that.
That's what was done back then, yeah.
Michael, thoughts?
I've walked, we walked with Jake around the little rock path, and we were out there and viewed all this. I think it's a great plan. It's gonna take, I think we just gotta realize it's gonna take some time. It's not gonna happen overnight. But if the plan's in place, at least we can start phase 1, 2, 3 and roll it out. But it's a beautiful piece of property.
It is.
No doubt about it.
I've been working with marketing. I worked a little bit with Emily, and she put some better verbiage in on the website. We'll continue to do that because we want people to understand that we're doing something, but it's going to take time. And that's the big thing. We need everyone to know that this is not a 1-year project. It's,
Right.
you're now you're going to see some dramatic difference when they clear out some of the woodland, that's for sure. But you're probably not going to see that same difference when we burn everything down. That's going to take time to get back. But the most viable way to do it, been done for hundreds, thousands of years.
Generations.
Is the burning.
Just where I grew up in Midwestern Kansas, that's just the way you do it.
So I want to pause there because I've actually was out to the Flint Hills and I understand this and things like this, but a burn in an open prairie is a lot different than a burn near a suburb.
Right.
A subdivision with high end. So I just think this is really impressive, and it's really sort of thoughtful, but I think we're going to have to stop and have lots of public meetings, really around it to discuss it and share it so that people have their questions and understandings. And then we need to make sure that there is neighborhood support for what it is that we're trying to do. And
Fire trucks.
well, no, because, frankly, when at the native grass, I was concerned that we would be cited for code complaints because we weren't cutting it and maintaining it. Oddly enough, Woodneath, for reasons that are understandable, is a little bit like Riverside. We had more conversations about this property and trees and maintenance and things like that. And so if we just need to allow the public to see what you just presented to them, answer their questions, this is something that in my mind that if we could start next spring with 2 or 3, public meetings, at the library, go walk the grounds, share it and show it because people will imagine what it might be, and that might be other than what we have in mind.
Right.
So, So that's what I was, the other thing that hadn't occurred to me because I did participated in the design charrette with Ochsner, Hare and Hare, is that having a garden there might be interesting because we now have a culinary center at Green Hills, and that we very well could use some of the space to produce produce that could be used in some of the activities that we have, at Green Hills. So I just, all I can say is wow.
Noting that we're almost approaching noon, I just want one more question.
Sure.
Is there some thought about possibly having it as kind of like a living museum sort of thing? When I was thinking of her, it's probably not the right term. I mean, that there's historical wealth in that farm area because we had World War II POWs working the ground. And that would coincide with, for example, the Truman Library when President Truman was, of course, the vice president during the same time. So is there any, and certainly the whole Clay County development area, that was one of the pivotal parts for the whole development. And I think there's just tremendous opportunities for a lot of local and community participation in the actual site.
I hadn't thought about that, Russ.
Yeah, I just like when we had what's her name, Mrs. Schmidt put on the presentation. She talked about the kids from Jewel coming down and working the land. And there's just all kinds of connections with everything in that area.
To Ron's,
That's probably a branch manager project.
no, to Ron's point, I think we should be looking for partners in this project, partners that are both funders and partners that are going to help us either with programming or partners that can help us with it. Actually, the Missouri Prairie Foundation is a resource that we might want to, I think to the degree that we share our thoughts and ideas with others is that we can help refine them and make sure that what we do in mind.
I was wondering if we could use the auditorium there to actually do a presentation, public presentations with these slides or whatever other slides you got. And then, and we could ask for partners, and then the bird issue, you could probably present that in those public meetings in that auditorium, because what a great way to show off the auditorium. I mean,
Yeah.
that place fabulous.
Okay, the partner should be the Kansas City Fire Department.
Yeah.
We're not even sure if we can.
Yeah.
Right. So John's still coordinating that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wanted to put that out as the most extreme measure because.
Yeah.
that's the-
Yeah.
that's
But
what
it is
we
the best measure, as you
Yes,
said.
It is.
But
Thank you. I recognize the work that has gone into that on top of everything else that's going on. So we've got a couple of more items and I think we're closing in. Okay. I think we all have this little fun feeling for the Farview Neighborhood Library, what it is and what it represents. And I thought, Jake and I were talking, I thought it'd be good to get an update because we're at a point that we need to think what that might look going forward.
We just need, the MOU ran through last spring with another year option. And Steve was still here. He met with Fort Osage primarily just to make sure that we were okay with extending it for 12 more months. And everybody agreed to that, especially in light of COVID. It really didn't get tested. And I hate that word, but just to make sure that it was working and doing what we wanted it to do. At this point, we believe that it is. I mean, if you're there on a Wednesday morning when the food pantry is open, it's just a phenomenal partnership. The MOU does come up again in March. At that point, we need to, and I have not met yet with CSL and Fort Osage to find out what to do because Fort Osage actually owns the building. I don't know if they are willing to continue to own that building or if we need to take that on. Right now, they take care of snow removal, is that correct, or lawn? They do one or the other.
It's lawn,
and
I
we take,
believe.
they take care of the lawn, we do snow removal. If there's any major issues with the building, they take care of that. Right now, there is not, so it's a pretty easy lift for them right now. And then we maintain the inside and make sure it's cleaned and pick up trash and all of that kind of stuff outside. So at some point, I just need to know if we are willing to take on the building. officially so that Fort Osage can pass it off to us. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's just a nominal amount of money and it makes it, you know, a token to say that they sold it to us, or if that's an official outright go in and get a proposed,
Appraisal.
yeah, thank you. What an assessment of what it is and things to go from there. But, and I could start that process and then bring it back just unofficially. You can get, I could do that because this is not a voting item. I just wanted it on everybody's radar that in 6 months, we need to either have another MOU or exchange, you know, a formal exchange and taking it on or whatever. That's all I really wanted to do with that. I don't think I would not propose that we not continue this location. That is not something that I would even entertain. The board would really have to dictate that if we did not want to go forward with keeping this location. I would like to, even if we take on the building, I would like to continue the partnership with CSL and the food pantry that's in it.
Yeah.
So,
And this would be another thing that, I mean, it could be as simple as asking Fort Osage to sell it to us for $1. Or it could be more complicated, like
More
what Susan
complicated.
alluded to. I'm leaning towards that because I really think that they have no purpose for the building. If all their expenses will go away. It's a fairly old building, but it's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
I'd like y'all to imagine if we decide to take that over, if we decide to think about maybe expanding it sometime down the road. I think there is a possibility of expansion. It's not a lot, but it'll be more than what they have. Obviously, there's some things that we could do to spruce it up a little bit beyond what we did. What we wanted to do is we wanted to put minimal investment in, which we did, and we wanted to provide service in an area that didn't have it, which we did. And so I'm hoping that you'll go along with Susan's recommendation to really push and not get rid of it once the March comes up, because I feel like it does a really good. It provides service to that community that they didn't have before.
I don't know the speed in which the school board works, but I'm sure that Dr. Snodgrass would have to take this to the school board and all of that. I'm happy to start those conversations now so that we're ready to go a little bit closer to March. If you are all amenable to that, it's not a voting item, I can just go do that. And I can bring that back sometime after the first of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and I will start those
That's
conversations.
great. I mean, we have to sow into the community, continue doing that as who we are.
Yeah,
You know, and
Yes,
this place is really sweet.
I think to consider that, we're just closing up over $100 million. That has a very strong impact for the aesthetics. Here we're actually, it's just.
we're
doesn't
meeting
look
basic needs. at
doing
this point.
great service. But the most deserving and underserved and underprivileged, I think shouldn't even be a discussion item.
Right. It's huge.
Well, the discussion item will come down to if we can't get it for $1, then that's
Even
the discussion.
then, compared to
Even
100
then, I think we need
to
to
100
consider
million.
it.
It's chicken feed.
I agree.
Yeah, we need to keep that.
Okay, I will go ahead and start those conversations and get that ball rolling.
I think you had three, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I've got 3 positive votes here. So, and if Joycelyn's still on the
Yeah.
phone, I can't imagine her not saying.
I should report Joycelyn actually she was muted, but she voted yes on the earlier one about the transfer of the capital to the surplus revenues over expenses to the capital fund. So that vote was a unanimous 4-0. We have one last item. This was something that Ron had initiated, and so I might have him, talk about what he has in mind. So we're to item number 13. This is the naming opportunity for.
A number of months ago, I was talking with John, and I thought.
John Laney.
Yeah, John Lynn, right. That it would be appropriate to have some kind of a recognition for Steve's tenure, third of a century with the library and the past decade plus as the CEO. And I had no idea, and I just threw out the idea of naming the conference room here for him, because so much is done in this room. And that didn't get very far, but later discussions between John and Steve mentioned the genealogy center, which had a great deal of affection for the activities there. And it was thought that the gathering space, the presentation area, Steve accepted, you'd be okay with having that, some recognition for him for that space. So I think, and I have no idea what would be an appropriate monument for it. And then one time at Woodneath, I noticed there was a very, very dignified but simple plaque on the wall for the people involved, the board and the officers as you go in there. Maybe that's just an idea, but I think it's appropriate to recognize his service and the commitment for the purpose of MCPL by the naming at the genealogy center. So I would propose that as a matter to present to the full board.
Take that as a motion?
Yeah.
For a second? I'll second it for purposes of discussion, so.
Okay.
Or to the point of discussion. I'll kick it off, provide a few comments. So this has been something that's been discussed with Steve Potter. My hope, if we decide this would be a recommendation, if we move it forward, it would go to the full board, that whatever we do would be to fund it with private funds as opposed to public funds. I think that we can do that in the same way that we've done some of that and associate it with Woodneath. There's also this other thing we need to be clear about what it is. Are we naming the lobby area? I mean, or for that, are we naming the exterior of the building? So it's the, Potter Community Hall, because it's a lot of space and there's a lot of ways to name spaces. And, I'm not entirely clear about what we have in mind based on your comments, Ron. I think you're talking about some plaque on the interior of the,
Something like that, yeah.
on the interior space and
In the
Yeah.
stage area, gathering space in there. And in that general area to the west. I think so.
in my conversations with others, I know it's come up that we said we generally don't name buildings for people. And then there's a couple of them, and these staff can help me here, Withers, but it happens to be that we named it after the road, and the road is named after the family that owned the property.
Raytown has actually got somebody's name on it.
Herndon, Joe Herndon.
Yeah. We all call it the Raytown branch, but it does have an official name on it.
This building has the John Ferguson that's out on the sign. Does anybody else know of other buildings that are named?
That's it.
We've got some areas and buildings that are
Right.
not like full buildings.
This is a different topic, but we were talking about putting a plaque up for the Rizzo family that provided.
What now?
There was a family that gave us a donation for.
Diana's supposed to be looking.
Yeah, I can weigh in on, there's some spaces that are named with plaques and donations. I think there's one over South Independence, the person that gave us the money to fund that program in space. The Rizzo has a plaque. I think there's one with, his name escapes me, it's one of our the first set of board members from the 60s. There's a plaque for him at Antioch on their wall. Herndon was named that before, I think we were even consolidated, I'm not sure. Herndon was in Raytown, was the superintendent and so on and so forth. The former library director, Dick Wilding, has there's like an end cap at genealogy. I think Dr. Gregg is over there. And by end cap, I mean, on the end of the roll, there is a little placard, am I saying that right? That goes on there. So, so those namings have been from donations of people who specifically said they wanted the same. Since we've taken on the donor naming policy, that's a whole separate, it's gone into a different direction, but those things.
Lee's Summit has the children's area.
Right, yeah.
Or that was part of the sales agreement, because they did contribute a good chunk of change for us to be able to get that property.
So since we have a policy, it's changed a little bit. It's changed about how we do that.
Diana just also chatted in saying she's working with Henry Rizzo on the recognition piece at MGC.
That was the family that we bought the property from, and they
Yeah.
gave it a donor. I'm going to suggest this, let's just table this for now, if that's okay, and then get some more detail about what's named for people and what does it look like and what the range of things are and the options, if that's okay with folks. Okay. I'll do that informally. Sure. Okay.
So there is a motion on the floor, so.
Yeah, there is a.
Okay, all right.
So you need to
I can withdraw it.
withdraw the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We covered a lot.
We did.
And actually, we saw some exciting things and some interesting things, and we provided, I think, what were some helpful comments back to staff. And I realize it takes a lot of time to prepare and get us together. So in my, I don't think we have any visitors' comments. I don't think that we, unless you know of any.
No, not in reference to.
I don't know that we have any other business, but I had to keep track of some notes because, well, no, I mean,
I know.
when I realized that we're not meeting until January, and I realized these are items that are kind of like our project list for 2023. One was the headquarter discussion. What does that look like? What do we think about it all? One was, let's have a presentation really on the security system, which was kind of like a new topic for me that I hadn't been aware of. I think we want to pick up the Woodneath conversation actually with our full board. There's no point going out to the community to talk about what we might have in mind if our board is not, supportive of that. I leave it to staff to schedule some of these things. You don't want to drop them, but they shouldn't displace really sort of pressing decision items that we have in front of us. And the last one that may be a little bit pressing is Farview, coming back and understanding, what Fort Osage's perspective is on that. And so that's a pretty full agenda. Kind of looming behind us as we press ahead. I'm trying to summarize 2 hours and see if I've missed something here. We have to really give some attention to how it is that we address our obligations that we incur in building new buildings in light of what might be some liquidity issues. It's not that we don't have the available resources, but they're tied up in longer term investments. So if that's a fair summary, did anybody else hear anything else or see anything else or want to add anything else? I appreciate the presence of everybody and Joycelyn online because we got really 3 action items. And so if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
I move in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those who abstain for whatever reason?
Yeah.
Okay,